Welcome one, welcome all. I am Sprometheus, the internet's unfriendliest barista. And today I am bringing you episode 2 of the Over Extracted podcast. And in the studio with me today is a friend, longtime coffee person, someone who's essentially been part of the San Diego coffee community for as long as I can remember. And I'm not even that old dog in the whole scene. Gerardo.
Hi, guys. I'm Gerardo Ledesma of Provecho Coffee Co.
And Provecho is a place where I go frequently. So I wanted to bring Gerardo on to pick his brain about the process, about owning a cafe. That's something obviously I've never done. Curious about basically everything throughout your whole program. And before we dove into this, we were kind of just chatting throughout. But you started as a pop-up.
Mm-hmm.
And how did you go from pop-up to full-on location?
Happened from like word of mouth. So we got access to bread and salt through my friend Berenice. She works at Inter-American and Atlas. She reached out to me because she had a friend that wanted us to serve Jerry, her friend Jerry, our friend now Jerry. He had a coffee shop on 25th and Imperial called Latte Mi Corazon, right there in Imperial and Logan Heights. And he wanted to do like a in honor of his company, like being 10 years old. And like it didn't exist. It doesn't exist anymore, but he wanted to do like an honorary launch party for having 10-year anniversary, right? And he's like, oh, like we talked on, she connected us through email. And then after that, we went over and like we shared emails, me and Jerry, and then finally we met at Virtuoso and we talked for like 3 hours. And after that, he's like, oh, I know the perfect place to do it. It's at Bread and Salt in Logan Heights. And I was like, perfect, let's do it. Let's start working on it. So we started talking a little more about what it would look like. And then he saw that I was doing pop-up events and they were getting really busy. And he was like, he's like, what if we found a place like for you to open your Provecho, your shop? And I was like, I don't know, like that'd be cool. But at the time I wasn't really wanting to open a shop. I just wanted to open a roastery and do wholesale and work 2-3 days by myself and go home, right?
I get that feeling, yeah.
And it's, in the beginning it was like that. So it was really cool to like work a little bit and have time with my wife and then do whatever else I wanted during the week. It was always coffee stuff though, usually. But yeah, so eventually we had this pop up in South Park, actually really close to where we are. And sorry if that wasn't supposed to be disclosed.
No, you're good. You're good. I'm not fully doxxed at this point.
No, and we did a pop up here with some chef friends I have, and it was probably the busiest one we did together. They did tortas de chilaquiles. So it's like 8 to 10 pickups on the one torta. You have to put beans, cheese, tortillas that already have the sauce mixed in together. You have to put cilantro, you have to put onions. It's a whole thing. There's a 3-hour line for tortas.
Oof.
And the coffee line was right next to it. So like both of our lines were just stacked. Because by the time people got to the coffee line, they're like, oh, can I order too? And they're like, yeah, go for it. You're right here. You already waited. And that day, Jerry's like, hey, I'm going to bring my friend Isabel. She's one of the owners of Bread and Salt. I'd love for you to meet her. And I was like, cool, perfect. But I felt like it was the worst pop-up to bring someone to meet me because it was just so busy.
Yeah, you can't like chat or
I couldn't chat it up and be
anybody,
like, hey, how are you? How you doing? You know, like, and so she ended up meeting her. She loved the coffee. She loved what we were doing. And a week later, I got a call from her. She's like, hey, I love what you're doing with your pop-ups. Like, I'd love for you to do something in our space to like activate the space a little more. And so we started doing like coffee and art events. Like I would pop up on a Saturday morning and just like serve coffee.
And for reference, I mean, what is Bread and Salt? Because I'm sure not everybody listening.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. Bread and Salt's it's a multi-use art space in Logan Heights. It's a really magical space. It was the Weber bread factory in like the 50s. And it closed down and was abandoned after like 2005, in like early 2000s. It was abandoned for a while. Then Jim, Isabel's husband, went in and they both purchased the building, and they transformed it into like a multi-use art space. So there's like different gallery spaces. There's like 5 gallery spaces in there. There's offices upstairs, like architecture firm. There's like a nonprofit upstairs. There's classes from like another art center in there, and now there's Provecho in there, which is really cool.
Yeah, I had no idea there was other businesses kind of in that space, because in my reference to Bread and Salt, I think the first time I went there was like 2016 when they had the first Cold Brew City was there. That was the first time I've ever been there. And now, when I go, most of it's kind of closed off because I go to Provecho in the mornings, and then I just like walk by a bunch of closed doors, or you can look in and you can see that there's some
stuff
art
going on.
around. But like other than that, I'm just like, oh, cool. Like peek through a window and just sip on some coffee and then on my way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a very cool space. It's kind of like industrial. For those who are watching the video portion of this, I'll try to get some pictures if you have any pictures.
I can send you some photos. Yeah.
Yeah, I could probably put them in the actual video so people can kind of get a reference of what it's like. Because even now going in, it has kind of a cool vibe with, I'm partial to blue lights. It seems like you might be too, because the Provecho logo is like on like a spinning. Is it still spinning?
Yeah, spinning blue sign.
The spinning blue sign that's in there. Yeah. So it's just a very like unique space, because also the thing that your bar is in front of is like an old bread oven.
It's a bread mixer. Yeah. Giant mixer. It was from the 50s. It was last inspected in like 1947 or something like that. Like it's engraved on the machine.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
It's just crazy looking. It's crazy, like industrial mix of everything.
Everyone thinks it's a roaster, and
I can imagine
we get asked that pretty often. It's just okay.
I can see people thinking it was.
It has the composition of a roaster. It has a hopper. It has a drum.
Yep.
It's just old and looks kind of gnarly.
It doesn't look like it's operational. That's for sure.
Yeah. But it's really funny. We get asked that a lot. But it's a really magical space, and
the outdoor space is sick though. I actually really love like to sit outside and have a coffee out there, just like the big mural of like the spray paint can.
Yeah.
It just kind of goes along with that whole art kind of angle.
Yeah. It was pretty funny because we were supposed to open out there originally as like a truck, but I didn't get funding to do it. So I applied for like a loan, and they didn't approve me because my business was too young.
Sure.
So they're like, sorry, we can't, unless you want to co-sign. I'm like, no, I don't want to bug anybody to co-sign for me. I don't want to risk that somebody else. Like risk a family member. Like, let me borrow your credit.
I get that.
Yeah. So we ended up just doing the mobile cart instead, which worked out way better. Yeah.
Well, speaking of family members, and I think about this every time I go in. The burritos. For one, the burritos that y'all serve on the weekends are delicious.
Thank you.
And my partner is from Texas, and Texas has this weird breakfast taco situation.
Flour tortilla, carne gusalo, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like fillings in general so much. She says that they're as close as you can get to like the traditional breakfast tacos that you get like in Texas. Like she's from San Antonio specifically. And I guess each city kind of has their own spin on it. But the bean and cheese one that y'all make is awesome. Obviously the chorizo and potato. But the one I always think about that you mentioned, you're talking about your family, is the birria.
Oh yeah.
Version.
Oh, the birria one.
And I still like think
cool.
about
you got
that.
To
and
try
I'm like,
that one. That one.
I was like, is your mom ever coming back? Like, what's going on?
Yeah. So my wife and her mom, they make those.
So your mother-in-law.
Yeah,
right
mother-in-law. Yeah, my suegra. She would come and do the birria with us. Like she's like, this is how you do it. Go for it. And so it's her recipes with the consommé. I'm really happy you got to try that one.
I think about that burrito.
Yeah,
regularly.
That's good to know.
Yeah,
man. I'll let my wife know.
I feel like those were popped off. Yeah, those were good.
She does a good job. Yeah, so we did like a whole branding of the little Provecho guy as like a vaquero, like a little cowboy guy, but he's on a donkey instead of a horse.
I feel like a lot of the unique branding alongside your Provecho logo, and you have artists who come in and do it. Like he's like a viral guy.
Koi-san. He helped us like bring the Provecho to life, right? So before it was just a little head with the beanie, which stems from when we first started, we started doing cold brew bottles during COVID. And go into this a little later too. I'm going off track from the burritos, but the logo was just a little like, it was like on the bottle it said chill shake Provecho.
Okay.
And on the when it said Provecho, it had a little circle face with a winky face. It looked like Caillou.
Oh, I think I do remember that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Super, super, like probably 3 years ago now. Since then, and maybe more, probably like 4. Wow, been around for a little bit. And I always use that little like circle happy face logo. Like I was like, I love this, and I told my friend that did it at the time, like, can I use this for whatever? She's like, yeah, dude, it's yours. Go for it. And we'd use it so much that when we started roasting coffee during right after COVID, my wife was like, why don't you just make the logo you? You always wear a beanie. And you're always smiling, so why don't we just put a beanie on it and call it? And I'm like, okay. And so we took the idea we worked with the designer in Tijuana, and he brought it to life, and it just stuck really well.
It's a fun, like, happy brand. I feel like a lot of coffee brands take themselves very seriously, and it's like, this is serious business. And sure, like you can have that angle, and that's fine. But I feel like in San Diego specifically, a lot of the branding is just like kind of heavy. And Provecho is just more like light, happy.
Thank you.
It's just like kind of a, and we we're talking about this before we even came in and started talking like on camera,
Yeah.
that like that space kind of breeds like a bit more of a community sort of vibe. I could just feel like
Yeah.
people in there are more open to want to chat or talk to you or make space for you and stuff like that, as opposed to other cafes where it seems like it's more of a, you know, transactional, like this space is mine, don't talk to me type of deal.
Yeah. No, definitely. Like, I think it's really cool about being in Logan Heights is I grew up there as a kid. So being able to open a business where I was from is like super important to me. And like my dad would play music at Chicano Park and we'd walk around, like we'd go to like the liquor store in the neighborhood and like so things like that are like really important. Like feels good. Like it resonates with me really well because I feel like I'm giving back in my own way, right? With something I like. And also like in terms of coffee, I never really took it like, I took it serious. I really love it and it's one of my passions. But I always felt like at the end of the day, I shouldn't take it too serious to the point where like I have to show that to someone. Like I think of it like if someone gets a batch brew and they want cream, like let them have their milk. Like, or if someone wants sugar in their drink, let them have sugar. Let them enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, but you know, there's like purists and stuff too. But I think that's what I like the most about Provecho is that there's something for everybody, no matter like who it is. You can get a really good espresso. You can get a really good pour. You can get a single origin bag coffee. You can get a conversation with a barista about the coffee for like 20 minutes if you want it. Like, I feel like there's a little mix of both.
Line, man.
Yeah, exactly.
I always feel like bad when I walk up and if you're there or someone else is there and we're just having a quick chat, I'm just like, I almost feel bad people behind me like watching me have a chit chat. I'm just
like, this guy's just talking to him. Like, I've been waiting here for 20 minutes. Yeah, no, people are really.
They're hustling, dude. I feel like when I go in there, you know, you have the person who's on the register is also doing pour overs too. So they're like, what can I get for you?
Yeah. It's like, the hardest position there is register.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm a hard pass on that. Even register in general. I don't want to talk. Personally, I'm not a talker. Like, even though, we're on a podcast right now. Like, I like having these types of conversations, but like talking to just a bunch of random people, whether how friendly or whatever they might be, I just like, that just drains my life energy, just drops. Yeah. Like put me on the machine, put me on a steam wand or something like that. Like I'm happy and I can do that for hours, but the talking for hours to different people and like typing it all out and having just like, I don't know, just for some reason, you know, it doesn't,
it's definitely a tough thing to do.
It's a
and then when you got to balance being on the bar and talking at the same time, that's a whole, that's a lot.
Yeah. Definitely can be.
It's funny because when I work on the bar, sometimes my staff's like, hey, can we put you on milk instead of espresso? So nobody comes to like try to talk you too much.
Oh yeah, so you're kind of like in the middle.
So I'm in the middle because then it's like that weird awkward space. So like I hand off a drink, I talk to someone for like maybe like less than 2 minutes, and then I talk to them. Right,
the next one.
Yeah, on to the next one. And so like they always tell me like, you want to just be on milk for 4 or 5 hours? I'm like, yeah, like I'm cool with that. I don't really get to make coffee as much as I used to, so it's really nice that the team's like, oh yeah, be on the bar.
You're like you said, you're a smiley, welcoming guy. You know, you want to chat with everybody. So I get it. That's like the perfect location for you. Really. Yeah. So yeah, it's a nice vibe. But I wanted to, you mentioned the coffee, you mentioned like single origin and stuff like that. And that's one of the topics I wanted to get into because originally y'all were only serving coffees from Mexico, correct? Mm-hmm. And you started branching out to like, looks like Central America. Mm-hmm. And so how did you start with just, and you wanted to provide like something for that neighborhood? And it's a heavily like Hispanic neighborhood for sure. So like, are you trying to create like a very cohesive sort of branding around Mexican coffees, or what was the idea behind that?
It was from like my barista experience. I always felt like Mexican coffee was underrepresented in the States, especially in like specialty coffee, right? Because you see like a crazy Ethiopia, you see a crazy Colombia, you see co-ferments, but you never see like a really cool natural from Mexico, or you never see a really good washed coffee from Mexico because a lot of people pass on it or they use it for a blend. So when we started the company, when we bought the roaster, I was like, okay, I'm going to look on Instagram for farms in Mexico. At the time we were roasting coffee in Tijuana, and I was crossing over the coffee roasted. And I told my wife, I'm like, I'm going to message these farmers and I'm going to see what happens. I messaged a couple, got some answers back. I didn't even order samples at the time. I just like blindly bought bags, and I rolled the dice well because the coffee was pretty decent.
Yeah.
And at the time I was paying like $3.50, maybe less than $4 a pound, which is really cool. Now coffees are a lot more. Yeah. It's another whole other thing. But that's the main reason why I wanted to focus on it, because I felt like I could find it. I felt like I could, because when I was living in Tijuana, I lived in Tijuana like 7 years. when I was living there, I had all the coffees that I had at the coffee shops were from Mexico.
Mhm.
So there's like over 5 or 7 states in Mexico that can grow coffee, and each state has like different like profiles. So like for example, you get a coffee from Chiapas, it's usually more like citrus forward and like chocolatey. You get something from Oaxaca, it might be more floral, fruity, or just really chocolatey as well. But it's really what's really cool about Mexican coffee is that like it has a nice body. It's usually you get the chocolate overtones and stuff, but then there's always like a little bit of like nuance of like citrus or fruitiness or floral. Just really cool. So you get the complexity of like an Ethiopia, but you have really good body instead of just being like a cup of like coffee, but it tastes like black tea or kind of like that's where I'm getting at. But yeah, there's also some Ethiopians that taste super rich and chocolatey as well. But yeah, the whole point of getting Mexican coffee was to represent where I'm from and where my people are from to like on the bar. Because I remember when I was a barista, when I worked at Copa Vida, I had one espresso from Oaxaca. And that's the first time I had Oaxacan coffee, and I was like, well, "This is fucking good." Sorry,
You're good.
I was like, "This is fucking good. I need to find a way to get this." And so we made it happen. And in the beginning, we were just like smuggling coffee, like so roasting it and bring it across.
Mhm.
And then after that, when I was they're like, "You can't do this," and I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Sorry, I won't do it again." And then so my wife at the time worked with a furniture company, and one of the guys that would export stuff would export my coffee for me.
Oh, okay.
So I'd get like 1 or 2 bags in the States every other week. Or back then I was roasting really small volume and not crazy volume like now.
Sure.
So it was like 1 or 2 bags every other week or every month. And it just kind of like, I don't know, it took off from there. So I think I kind of got my foot in the door in terms of roasting and like kind of like standing out a little bit with our coffee because I got like exclusive Mexican coffees that people don't have here in the States. Like our Oaxacan coffees is the most popular one, and that's the one we've been buying for over 3 years.
So you have like a direct relationship.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we have a direct relationship with the Oaxacan coffee. I have other relationships with other farmers when I used to buy direct in Tijuana,
Mhm.
but I can only export so much.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true where it comes to, when you think about Mexican coffees on like the specialty side, you definitely see them mainly as like a blend component.
Mhm.
And I think as someone who's been in specialty coffee for a while, I think that, and Siri and I talked about this in the first episode, where there's this like kind of this bell curve of how you enjoy coffees. And so early on in your experience, you really want to try the funkiest, wildest coffees. And oftentimes they don't come from Mexico, right? You get, or like the co-ferments, like all those things are massive risks to the green producer to say, well, maybe this will turn out, maybe it won't. Like that's like half of my, income for the year or whatever. So I think that a lot of people just early on focus on getting those wild, weird coffees and having those experiences, which is great. But I think you reach a point in that bell curve where you start to feel like, I want to see what I maybe missed in this less funky coffee earlier on. Like we were having that Veracruz Natural of yours, like I had it this morning, and I made you a drink with it this morning or this afternoon.
Yeah.
And it just has so many different, and a lot of coffees are this way, right? Where it's not some kind of crazy, co-ferment. It doesn't have any sort of really wild sort of things. You have to really kind of dig for them. And that only comes like with experience and tasting and brewing and understanding and kind of thinking about them a little bit deeper way.
Yeah.
And personally, I just have come to the point where I just love like a crowd pleasing coffee. Because every morning when I make my coffee, and I'm an espresso guy, I generally don't want to get punched in the face with like strawberry or something like that. Like I want something that can go well with milk, can go straight, whatever way I want to make it. And I think the Mexican coffees really hit those points. That's why I'm like oftentimes buying bags when I go see you versus someplace that's got like co-ferments or something wild.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Cause I think I always wanted coffee to be like, I always think it should be approachable, right? So like you want to have something that an everyday drinker can have, but that will also taste good by itself. That will shine as a shot, right? So like the Oaxacan coffee you get, for example, like it's chocolatey, but it has like nuance of like strawberry, maybe citrus, maybe apricot, or depending on your palate, what you'll pick up. But
absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's good to have that complexity and have like the best of both, which is really interesting.
And then you were talking about before, also you branched out into like Honduras, right?
Yeah, so we work with a Honduras producer directly, Juan Urquia. He's amazing.
Yeah, that coffee is definitely one of my faves that you've had in recent
Yeah, that's
memory.
a really good one. Yeah, we worked out something with him, so we'll have it like probably like from here on out. We'll always have it on the menu, which
Oh,
is
right
really
on.
cool. Yeah, it's a super solid one. We're gonna try some Colombian coffee really soon. Um, Ethiopia's we're working on. We're trying to find some solid ones that we really like. Yeah, I agree with you too about the crowd pleaser coffees because that's definitely huge and kind of can relate to that. When I started, I used to roast a lot darker,
Mm.
and then John worked with me to like kind of revamp our roasting program, and it got way better.
Which John?
John Gutierrez, our
Oh,
roaster,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
guy with the big beard.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. He's more like behind the scenes. You'll see him on the bar every now and then, but
I think I see him
yeah,
there pretty frequently, I
yeah,
feel like. Yeah, there's so many Johns. It's
yeah.
just hard to keep them straight.
No, it's okay. But yeah,
Not everyone can
he's
be an
great.
Asa or
Yeah,
Gerardo, you know? We have to be,
exactly.
they got to have the Johns in the
Yeah,
mix, you
yeah.
know? No, I get that. Yeah, that's great. That was one thing that I was kind of surprised to hear because I hadn't heard. Recently, you told me that when I brought up the Honduras, I was like, oh, I really like this Honduras. Last time I spoke with you, you're like, oh, yeah, I'll tell John. And I was like, oh, so you're not roasting anymore.
Yeah,
So,
I do sometimes. So it kind of like I do production maybe like every other week. I'll help. Like I
okay.
was at the roastery this morning, but yeah, I don't roast that much anymore. I feel like John's doing an amazing job at it, and I don't want to take that from him.
Sure.
Right. And our wholesale clients are happy. Our retail clients are happy. You're loving the coffee, which I love hearing. So I always text him like, hey, Ace, I loved your coffee. He's like, oh, thank you. And he just puts like happy emoji. Yeah.
Right
So,
on.
but yeah, so like things like that, like I always tell him, hey man, someone messaged me saying they love the coffee. Good job. Like, so I think from hearing that, I'm like, I have a lot of confidence in him that he's going to keep crushing it. Right.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I think early on I realized I can't do everything as much as I want to.
Mhm.
So I got to start kind of letting things go and delegating things to everybody else that want to do it.
Sure.
I still cup a lot with him. I go on like I'll do a roast or two when I go with him to the roastery, but I'm never like doing all 20 batches or all 10 batches. I kind of leave it to him.
Was it hard
Yeah.
to let go of that? Because that was something that was,
Yes and no.
yeah.
I realized how much more he loved it than I did. So I love roasting too, but
Yeah.
I think I like making coffee more on the bar. I like the barista role more than the roaster role. So I like talking to people.
Yeah. I can
Um,
see that.
and so, but I also like the business side. Like I like doing spreadsheets. I like sending emails. I like doing admin. So if I have that good medium, I have that good balance, right? Where I work a day maybe on the bar, and then the rest of my week is like wholesale, reach out,
Okay.
emails, all training, whatever else I got to do.
Who manages social media?
My wife.
Okay.
Yeah, she's the one doing all that. So I don't even look at the Instagram. Like, unless it's like someone specific, like, 'cause she's like, oh, hey, your friend Asa messaged you, like, oh, yeah, let me get back to him real quick or something. Or like specific messages I'll like attend to, but like most of the time she's on it. So, and then I have a manager at the cafe, Jorge, he's crushing it. So I don't worry about the cafe, which is kind of a weird feeling because it's my baby, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, it's growing up little by little. So it's like,
Needs you less and less.
yeah, which is a weird feeling because then I'm thinking, what am I going to do with like
Mhm.
my time? And like, I'm always working, I'm always doing something, but like, it's like more to the point where like, what's next for me, right? So,
Have you considered any sort of second locations or expansion at this point or anything like that?
yeah, I'm thinking like outside San Diego.
Okay.
Is our move, other state maybe. That's my move, I think. Yeah,
Right on. Yeah, that's a big move.
yeah. When I think of Provecho as a brand, right? We wanted it to become like a lifestyle brand.
Okay.
So for example, you buy a bag of coffee. It's a really good example. I have 3 examples. You buy a bag of coffee every day in the morning for 5 days straight. That the coffee should last you. Like the average person drinks 25 to 50 grams of coffee a day, technically. You'll run out of your bag in like 5 to 6 days, maybe longer. But every morning you'll see the bag, and you'll see the little guy with the beanie. You buy a bottle of cold brew. Every day you open your fridge, you see the bottle in your fridge. It's like ingrained in your head. It's almost like a Nike, Adidas tactic, almost, I would say, like, because you see the swoosh, like, oh, it's Nike.
Okay. Yeah.
I kind of want you see the little winky face, it's Provecho, like the little beanie guy. I think that was really big for us too, that we wanted it to kind of cultivate it into a lifestyle brand, because it's more than coffee, it's a people business. Like
Mhm.
as much as we're trying to roast the best coffee we can and source the best coffee we can, and taking care of the people is everything.
How
Yeah.
would you manage like quality assurance in like a different state? I think that you
Yeah.
have a really trustworthy like
I would probably
team?
have to move for a little bit
Mhm.
to the state I want to go open at, and or city, whatever. I just have to like have like a little hub there where I can go, and also leave it in the hands of really good people too, and showing and bringing them to San Diego, showing them how we do it here, and then sending them back. I think that might be the way, and also like just we have a lot of SOPs, so we have like operating procedures for everything, like how to pull espresso, how to work on the bar, how to make a pour over, how to make a specific piloncillo syrup, how to make the orange dream. Everything's like to the gram and to the penny. So we have it pretty
Right on.
tight on like production side and quality. So everything, that's why everything tastes the same. The burritos taste the same. The coffees always taste the same. Maybe the espresso might change. That's normal, but
Sure.
in a good way. But yeah, like sauces and syrups are always consistent.
And so as you're considering,
Mm-hmm.
growing, do you have any clues on what state or where out of California you might want to go?
Like east. Yeah.
Well, there's really not much
Yeah.
the other direction.
Yeah. East, maybe Asia, maybe.
That's like out of country, not out of state.
Yeah, I want to do both. I want to do both. I'm pretty ambitious and I'm pretty crazy. Like I like taking risk, and I think that's why I like business so much. Like I think if I gambled, I'd be a really bad gambler because
Okay.
I like, oh, if I put this much money in, I'll make this
The
much.
potential is
potential's
high.
huge, right?
Yeah. I would be very curious to see how that would translate into not only other states, but like other cultures. Like I don't know much about like Asia's
Mhm.
coffee scene. Like I see stuff on Instagram,
Mhm.
but I don't know, how you would kind of shoehorn like the Provecho experience
that.
into
Yeah.
Japan or
Yeah.
China or wherever you might end
I
up
think
going.
like if it was Japan or Korea or something, it'd probably just be slower. Like more like you're gonna sit here and have your coffee. Like nothing to go probably.
Yeah.
A lot of like the American coffee experience is very fast, right? Like you're in, you're out, you order, you pay first,
Mhm.
you get your coffee second, right? In Europe, it's the opposite. You get your coffee, then you pay. I feel like I haven't been to Japan or anything, but I have some friends that went and they said the experience is more chill. They're more calm. They'll still crank and make your coffee fast, but the intention is that you sit and you enjoy it. Like one of my friends was telling me it's looked down upon if you have a to-go coffee in Japan and you're walking with coffee, like you're supposed to sit and enjoy it, which is really cool and like admirable because I feel like in the States we don't do that enough.
And I feel like, going back to like the Japanese culture, from what I've seen, like some of their shop build outs are just so compact.
Mhm.
Like it's just a very small space where there's like maybe two people working. They have a small roaster where all their coffee's roasted
Mhm.
in that space. It's just, if I were going to do a cafe type of situation, that is like my peak, my pinnacle. Like I don't think I would be a great boss. I don't think I'd be a great like be able to delegate things like that. Like it's just not how I'm wired. And so I just feel like if I could do it all myself in just a small space, just like have a very chill experience, like that would be
Yeah, that's your day to day. Like you wake up, you get to roast a couple batches, you make some drinks,
yeah,
and
exactly.
you do the best of everything.
100%.
Yeah, that sounds. It reminds me of when Provecho first started. It was kind of like that. I would roast at night. I opened the bar in the morning. It was a long time doing that by myself. Maybe like 4 or 6 months after we opened the cafe,
Mhm.
and then I finally hired people, and we kind of took off from there.
How many employees do you have over there now?
Right now we have 6 or 7.
It's pretty good.
Yeah,
Pretty good size.
it's a pretty good sized team. We're tight knit. Like we keep it. Labor's pretty tight.
Yeah, I see. I see the same faces.
Yeah,
for sure.
They're all on it, and they're the best team. Yeah, if I thought about my dream cafe team, I wouldn't expect that. Yeah, they beyond my expectations. Like to the point where they kick me off. They're like, go home. I was like, what do you mean? You guys need help with dishes?
Their
They're
style,
like,
man.
yeah, they're like, just go. It's fine. We'll be okay. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I feel like that's another thing that I look for when it comes to like a cafe that I want to go to frequently, outside of obviously good coffee,
Mhm.
good food, whatever those aspects are obviously important. But to me, when I go to a cafe and I see different people so frequently, I start to be like, are they being treated well? Are they like being worked to the bone? And then when they
Yeah.
like complain, get fired or whatever, people quitting all the time because it's a
Yeah.
toxic place to work.
Mhm.
And like knowing you, I'm just like, I can't imagine it could end up that way. So I'm
Yeah.
just like, everyone seems happy. It's always the same people when I go
Yeah.
in there. That's an important factor for a place that I'm going to be a regular at. Like,
Mhm.
obviously I don't know if I'm going to go into a cafe for, when I'm on vacation or traveling, but like places that I go to frequently are the places that like I see the same people. I know that they're, enjoying themselves or seem like they're having a good time. No one
Yeah.
seems miserable to be there.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it makes my experience better
Yeah.
having that too.
It's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
I always wanted Provecho to be the space that like the place I never could worked, right? Like, or I wanted to be I guess the boss that I never had, right? Like if somebody wants to do something, I'll show them how, right? Well, you want to learn how to make schedules? Let's do it. Well, you want to learn how to do Excel? Let's do it. You want to roast? Let's go do it. Right? Or if you want to make syrups, I don't know why you want to, but let's go do it. Right? Things like that. I think because when I worked at places, I would always ask a lot of questions.
Sure.
I worked in some kitchens too, and I always would ask the chefs questions like, "Why do you do this with this flavor?" or "Why do you do that?" And almost like dumb questions I would ask, just so I can like know how they think about it and how they explain it to somebody. Because I feel like every person you work with obviously has a different way they take feedback and stuff like that. And I think
that's true.
It's good to like interpret it a certain way for everybody. Yeah.
That brings up an interesting question in my mind, and one that I've known you for I don't know how long now. How long have we known each other? Like
almost 10 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say like a decade.
Yeah.
And I've thought about asking this question like a million times, and it just never came to me. And I was like trying to think about stuff that I wanted to ask you, and I have it written down. You're talking about like talking to chefs and working in kitchens, and like my earliest memories of you was I was pretty sure you were a chef. Your Instagram handle is Sushi Sombrero.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
It was my League of Legends username.
Okay.
It's just
all right, we got a gamer in the house, folks.
I used to play a lot of League of Legends, and I was like Sushi Sombrero. I was like, oh, that's a cool name.
That is a good one.
And
it is a good one.
Now I'm stuck with it. I can't change it.
Yeah, I understand how that works.
Yeah, it's there for good. I don't really have an explanation. It was just I like sushi.
Yeah,
I used to like this taco shop called Sombreros. But
I guess Blink-182 liked them too a lot.
Yeah,
I guess that was
they had it in the song. Yeah, she brings me burritos from Sombreros just because. Yeah.
So we're in the in the pocket.
Yeah, I was a sous chef for a little bit at Copa Vita when the chef left. So when I started at Copa Vita, I worked in the kitchen because I just wanted to work in kitchens. And then after that, I left because my dad passed away, and I couldn't do the kitchen was too much.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to coffee. My friend was managing West Bean at the time. I was like, hey, you want to come back and work here? I need someone Monday through Friday, 6 to 12. I'm like, oh, I'm there. That's easy. So I went and did my time there. And then the owner of Copa Vita is like, hey, please come back. I have a barista position for you. I was like, cool. Paid me a little more, and I went to Copa Vita in East Village, and that's kind of where I think I got a lot of more of my coffee experience in terms of like high volume. But I always like to tell people I was like almost like street smart coffee. Like I never was really learned like technicality stuff. So like if you talk to me about like certain things, I probably don't know how to talk to you about it. I never thought of myself like overly educated in it, but I'm educated enough to do what I'm doing, I feel like.
That's like a difference between someone who works in a field and someone who's like a hobbyist.
Mm-hmm.
Because I see that a lot in like home baristas versus a professional barista who works behind a bar. Like the difference between those people and their way they approach the same thing is usually pretty wide.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen that gap start to close a little bit over the recent years because certain tools and techniques and ideas have kind of transcended like the intense home barista scrutiny and made its way into like cafes. But very rarely do I go into a cafe and they're like using a WDT tool or, using some kind of gadget. Home baristas will like go onto a forum and argue to the death, like the increased quality, like in a minuscule amount and blah, blah, blah. But you can go to a cafe, like a cafe that you're going to get probably a great cup of coffee from. None of that stuff's happening.
Yeah.
Or very little of it anyway. It's just such a unique like difference, right?
Yeah.
Like, when you actually do it for a living versus when you do it for fun.
Yeah.
Like that experience is same product, very, very different vibe.
Yeah.
So
definitely feel that I've had a lot of home barista friends I've made along my journey, right? And they always ask me a lot of questions like, do I really need this? I'm like, not really, bro. Save yourself $200. Don't get it. Like in the beginning when I first had to use those little distribution tools, I didn't like them because I learned tamping just without it. And I was like, if my tamp's fine without it, why do I need this machine, right? But we use it every day at Provecho. Every shot is pulled with. I use it at home now, and I think it's it makes a difference.
It's just about
But it's-
consistency at that point, right?
Exactly. And I thought about it like that. I'm like, how consistent do I want my shots to be?
Yep.
Especially if you're not using like grind by weight grinders, or if you don't have a volumetric machine, that's going to be your.
And also you have the barista, right? Different baristas are going to tamp different pressures, and you're just like, you're going to end up having to change the grind, and different barista comes in after break, and it's just like, it throws everything off. So it makes sense to use like, I guess you would call it calibrated tampers, more or less.
The little ones that have like spring.
Yeah. Or it stops you, like it keeps you from not going like perfectly straight or whatever. So, or like makes a snap noise when you hit 30 pounds. So it's just like knows, where you're, everyone's doing it consistently at least, or like the distribution tools and stuff like that.
Definitely.
But yeah, that does make sense. But it's just kind of funny to like have a home barista. I think that would be a great episode. Just get like a home barista and like a professional barista and have them talk.
Oh yeah. I go on Reddit sometimes. I'm like, oh my god.
I avoid Reddits. I avoid forums.
Sometimes it's yeah. People talk about you on Reddit.
Oh, I know.
It's good stuff that I've seen so far.
I have not seen
really
the good stuff. Early on in my career, I would look at those at like Reddit or forums or Google my name or home barista, stuff like that. And that's the thing is like, it goes all the way back to everyone's got an opinion. And the one thing is like coffee is such a subjective experience, and sure, a lot of people use like very definitive language, or like this is the best way to do this or whatever. And obviously they're talking for their own opinion, but people seem to get so fired up when you have an opinion that doesn't match their opinion about something as non-consequential as the way you make your morning coffee. Like it blows my mind just like the intensity that people can have, anger about something so inconsequential. Like what's going on in your life to where I am drawing your anger out by the way I make my coffee. Yeah. It's wild.
It's all subjective. And I think that's super funny that people get like that. I don't know. I always tell people when they ask me questions about how should I make this? And I'm like, is it tasting good at home? I'm like, yeah, I love it. Don't change anything. Don't buy those crazy tools. Don't do anything different. If your coffee's tasting good, just run it. And I think it comes from when I first started doing specialty coffee, we didn't have scales. We didn't have any crazy distribution tools. I had a Mazer, dosed it, looked at it. That's 20 grams, tamp, pull, right?
Did you have the dosing Mazer?
No, I only used that once. I was spoiled.
I'll have to pull up a picture of that because I think a lot of people don't. I have used them in the past. And I feel like they were ubiquitous in like the early coffee days, like I would say like second wave maybe coffee. If you go into some cafes, you'll see them. They're very, very rare. And it's essentially just a standard like matzer, but you grind into like this chamber where there's just a ton of grinds built up. Like
you got to flick it to get the grinds.
And you just like move this handle and it drops like a certain amount per, but like it's not a consistent amount by any means. It's just like kind of consistent, I guess. And people be like, oh, like 3 taps, tamp and go
for it,
or whatever. It's just such a weird. Now when I think about it, it's crazy, but
people mod them too, and they just make it like kind of like a doserless.
Yeah,
have you seen those mods where it's like a shoot?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, people are going to mod all sorts of everything, but I just feel like that was such a crazy time in coffee, and like a lot of those coffees were super dark roasted too.
Yep.
In those times, and so like now, when I've seen those things, like there's like a window on it.
Yeah.
And it would just be stained. It would just be like yellow. They didn't clean the
one I used. It was like
ever.
that. Yeah,
yeah. It was just it'd be a nightmare to look at.
Those are definitely old school.
Yeah, that's a rarity.
Yeah, I never got. I only used that once at one cafe I worked at, but the rest were always automatic. And used the Peak a lot. It's one of my least favorite grinders.
The Peak.
Yeah, the new Malconic one. I feel like it's like a mini version of that because it has similar issues, but it's better.
Yeah, I use that. I think Malconic is great in a lot of ways, but I had an issue with the Peak a lot when I worked too.
Me too.
Overheating, clogging. It was just
the fastest at the time.
It was like the grinder that everyone had to have at the time. It was that, and you have an EK on the bar behind you, and that was like what everyone had. Or you had like the dual kind of.
Those ones were cool.
I can't remember what that was called.
I enjoyed working on that one. Those were really rare that you can't really find those anymore.
Yeah, that had a similar
similar vibe
but similar issues too. Like again, like clogging, overheating.
The chute had like this little aluminum flap that would get stuck, and you'd have to like take off the plate. And kind of similar what happens with the E80s, like the little flap gets dirty, so you got to take it out, clean it.
Oh yeah, like the clump buster or whatever they call it. I guess
Yeah.
there's I'm sure usually different terms for it. But yeah, it's just like I just remember when I roasted for his company for a while, the baristas would always come to me when something went wrong.
Mhm.
And I'd be in the back roasting, and they'd be like, "Oh, the cleaning alarm's going off. Clean it."
Yeah.
I can't just walk away.
Yeah.
This thing is like 400 degrees right now.
Yeah.
And there's a batch in there.
Yeah.
Like, just like, what are you doing? Just
Yeah.
Google it. Why am I the one?
Yeah.
That drove me nuts, man. Oh, and also we had a Synesso.
Oh yeah. This can be problematic as a computer, right?
The issue that we had, it was always pretty reliable, but the issue that we had is underneath there's a switch. And that switch, when you turn it one way, one click, it's powers on like the steam boiler. Another click over, it had like 3 spots. So like all the way over was full on. It would do like coffee and steam boiler would be on. But if you only clicked once or didn't click at all, obviously it wouldn't heat up. And baristas were always wiping underneath the machine and would turn it off. It'd be like the weekend or something, and they would like call like a service company and pay them like $150 to come out and flip the switch because they didn't bother to look. It's just a very inconvenient spot for it to be, like, because you're obviously going to wipe underneath there, and so very easily just off, and then you're, $150 in the hole because the baristas were like, we don't know what to do.
Yeah,
we thought it was broken. So
that was the first specialty machine I used. Yeah, with the volumetrics and everything. Not the volumetrics, the pre-infusion.
Yeah, it does kind of have like a volumetric paddle, basically, kind of type of thing, where it's like each is a different phase. Yeah. We had the Hydra, which is like one pump per group or whatever. Cool. So, although just like at this point, now what I know about coffee, at the time I was like, oh, this is very cool. But now that I've tried so many different home machines, I'm just like, this seems like kind of a waste of pumps.
Yeah,
because it's not really doing anything that interesting. Like you can't really. You'd think you'd be able to adjust it far more than you can. Like you can only just put certain timings on like ramp up or ramp down or whatever. Like you can't get too in depth with it. So it just seems almost like overcomplicated or over like teched.
I've always been a big Marzocco fan. It's my favorite.
That's where I started.
I'm always like, I had worked on a Key Fan in Weston. I really like those.
I love that.
Those are fun. It would break down a lot though. A Copa Vita.
Yeah, I do remember that, actually.
It would break down pretty often, but it was a really fun machine. Little paddles were super cool. It was low, like the low profile was it was so nice to work on because like people that weren't as tall, it would be really easy to work with. Yeah.
The steam I remember being really cool because it had like a proper taper on it, and it would stay. Like you did have to like hold it at a specific spot. It just had like a little knob you would just move and it would just stay in that spot. You could just like go a little bit and then like it would just do its thing.
Yeah.
I remember liking that, but they have a new lever machine that I love. But I looked into it. It has its internal reservoir, so it seems like, okay, like that's almost good because I can't really put water in this room. But I think it uses a 220 volt, which would mean I'd have to like get a different.
Put 220 in here.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't know. Maybe someday.
You can do it. It's a quick fix. You just add another panel.
Yeah.
Maybe do a little mini sub panel and add some more breakers.
I could maybe, I mean, since it has an internal tank, that gets rid of one problem. Because my thought was, I'm going to plumb it in, and then that means I have to get like a whole house filter, a whole like RO system, because San Diego's water is so.
Yeah, you can also do a little mobile tank setup too.
You could do that, like get like a flow jet or something.
I have mine plumbed on like a tank at my house.
Oh yeah,
yeah, it's awesome.
Well, that's the only way it can use pre-infusion, right? Is if you plumb it.
Yeah, you plumb it. Yeah.
I never ended up plumbing my mini, but at the time it didn't have pre-infusion. It only had pre-brewing.
Okay.
Which I thought was a very odd concept.
Yeah.
Like you could only set the time it was on full pressure, the time it was off, and then time it comes back on. So I'm just like, this doesn't seem ideal. Like it just almost seems like a weird workaround to actually doing pre-infusion.
Yeah. I've always just done classic on it, just hitting the paddle over and just pulling the shot normal.
Yeah. I think, La Marzocco's, their home machines are solid, and like their commercial machines are solid. It's interesting to see now, though. Did you see the post I did on Instagram the other day?
Which one?
So a little while back, this is a backstory.
Yeah.
A little while back, DeLonghi bought the controlling
Yes.
share of La Marzocco.
Yeah.
And I did a video about that, talking about how I felt like it might cheapen the brand and things like that. And some people were like, oh, like you're crazy, blah, blah, blah. And then I saw a friend of mine, a friend of the show, Tom, sent me a DM on Instagram. I was like, did you see this? And it was a picture of DeLonghi's new machine, the Linea Classic. And it was just one of DeLonghi's just little tiny home machines. It's like a $200 home machine called the Linea Classic. I'm like, interesting.
Doesn't look like a La Marzocco machine.
No, nothing like it. I'll put a picture. If you're, again, the benefits of watching the show versus listening, they're there.
Yeah.
But I feel like it just looks it looks like a standard DeLonghi. Like you can buy it at Crate and Barrel. It just hurts the heritage. It just hurts my soul a little bit to see it. It just like, God, like how. And I texted my brother who, he worked at La Marzocco for like 10 years and he was on the commercial side. Like the home and the commercial are two completely different, separate entities. And I sent him and he was like, that's fake. I was like, it's not. I thought it was fake.
Yeah.
When I saw it, I thought, oh, there's no way that's real. And I Googled it. Nope, it's real. To take the brand, like the name of such a flagship machine that's just like literally built that entire brand and then slap it onto a $200 home machine. It's disrespectful.
Yeah.
I was just like, this
definitely
is bad.
Yeah.
So
how do you like the new minis? Have you got to use one?
I have not got to use one.
I don't really like them so far. I like the old one a lot more.
So I have opinions about them, and I had concerns immediately because there's lots of plastic involved. Like I understand there's like a plastic, like steam. There's a part of the steam wand is plastic, which heat and plastic don't generally get along very well. I think the convertible portafilter is a very cool idea, but not executed in a great way. I think again,
it's
plastic
like the micro,
and heat.
like they took the
they took the micro portafilter and threw it on there.
Yeah.
And what I see there is just a lot of cost saving.
Yeah.
Like a lot of avoiding, material costs. I believe the panels are thinner. So again, you're starting to look at like they're reducing the amount of metal, they're reducing the amount of like cost on their end, and the prices are obviously still going up, right? When I bought my
how much did yours cost
version
when you bought it?
So the retail they were like 42. I think
mine was 49 when I got mine.
Yeah. But my brother used one of his family discounts. Okay. So I got my Linea Mini and my essentially a Mozart Mini, but a Lux D La Marzocco
with the little button.
With the button, for $2,300. Like that was a deal. It was a deal.
It's a good deal.
So if you want to get a job at La Marzocco,
you
get 3 family discounts.
That's pretty crazy good.
And so I think he bought himself the new Mini, and I was like, can I review that before
you open it?
You do anything with it? And he's like, no. I was like, damn it.
I want to get a GS3 next. That's my.
I will say.
Have you used one of those?
Yeah, that's what I had.
Yeah.
For a while. I sold the Siri.
Okay.
Siri has my old GS3. Yeah. Now, I really loved the GS3 in a lot of ways, and I hated it in others. The biggest problem I felt with was just the water waste.
Okay.
The way the needle valve works on the paddle, essentially, when you move the paddle, it blocks water from entering the group, which is how it controls pressure.
Yeah.
And so when you block that water, it has to go somewhere, and it goes down the drain. So anytime you're running that anywhere below full pressure, you're just dumping water.
Like you're backflushing, almost.
Essentially, yeah. It's just kicking out the valve constantly. It just runs.
So you have to fill your machine more.
To fill it more, but even like let's say it's just not very eco-friendly, even if you're plumbed in.
Yeah.
So I didn't love that aspect of it, but I think it made some of the best shots I've ever had up until that point. And I think in terms of kind of I'll use the term classic machine, like a semi-auto machine, it's very good at like light roast. You really get like there's a lot of breadth of experience. I think that the mini is great, but it does also require, at least before there was pre-infusion, like the bottomless portafilter on that was tended to be a bit of a nightmare because it was so hard to get clean shots because it was just punching your coffee with like a huge flow rate too. Like the water debit on that thing before I changed the jet to like a 0.06, it was just kicking water out. And it's nice to be able to control like all that stuff straight out of the box. So I think the GS3s, if I were going to go back to a La Marzocco, that's probably what I would get.
Yeah.
But I feel like if I'm going to start looking, if I were to look for a La Marzocco now, I would look for a pre-DeLonghi buyout.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what's changing. Right?
They have like a timer. The reservoir looks different. I feel like the steam one's different. It's like the you can touch it. That's what I've seen. I also don't like the silver lettering. I like the red.
Yeah.
It's just more aesthetic stuff too. I mean,
I feel like
it's smaller.
This might be a hot take. And I'd be curious.
I'm all for it.
Yeah. I think Cool Touch steam wands is like some kind of scam. Because I've never used a steam wand and touched it and be like, oh, this is cool to the touch.
Yeah. You still burn the shit
it's still burn the shit out of yourself.
Yeah.
Like, why do they call it that? That branding is just made up. It's just everything says it's Cool Touch, and it's just not.
$500 more.
Yeah, it's just like we're just going to upcharge for like we put like a tube inside to maybe reduce it by like a fraction of a degree. It just doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
They're just not. It's just not a functional piece of coffee kit.
Yeah, I just never touch it. I always use a microfiber or towel. Just save my hand.
Yeah, I mean,
have burnt myself with it though.
When you're working in a cafe, it's easy to burn yourself with it because it's always hot because you're always using it.
I don't think at home you need a cool to touch one.
At home, like who cares? Like,
how do you like the micros?
I thought it was fine. Yeah. Honestly, I thought, and this was a hot take that I made, and I think I still feel like I'm correct on this. When the Meeker came out, I thought this is what the Mini should have been. Like the Mini was supposed to be like this home-focused espresso machine. Like that is what the Meeker is. It's less expensive. Yeah. It's smaller. It's just easier to maneuver, to put into places. Yeah. It's just, that's what the Mini should have been. And like the Mini is almost just like a single group Linea at that point. Cause it's just essentially, it does cost quite a bit less, at least at the time, but it's so commercially viable. It just doesn't seem like a home machine.
Yeah. I've done a lot of events with mine. I've done like over 400 cups.
Yeah, they're
in one event with it. Yeah,
they're workhorses for sure.
Yeah, I've seen people do events with the Meekers too, just pretty crazy.
That seems like I mean, depending on how busy your event is, sure.
If they're like 50 cups, maybe you'll be okay. But
I just feel like just a little bit slower, smaller boiler. Everything's a little bit smaller, a little bit tighter. So I feel like my biggest complaints about the Minis now, like all the La Marzocco Linea machines, is just the overhang. It just feels like there's no space. Yeah. Like it kind of drives me nuts. Like after working on the GS3, where it's just like you have so much room for activities. Yeah. There's like nothing there.
You can't fit one specific scale. You can't.
Yeah, you have to like a very specific, or you have to get the tray.
Little indent. Yeah,
you have to pay like $300 for something that's like it's always out of stock. I think I tried to look at it, getting it like multiple times. Every time I went to their website, it was out of stock, and I'm just like, why am I even bothering with this? So you have to have a specific small thing. If you have a spouted portafilter, good luck to you. You have to like kind of scoop it underneath, and then you have to hopefully you don't fill it up enough to where you spill it on the way out. Yep. So it's just it just feels like a little bit. It's not quite as ironed out as it should be. I feel like in terms of the design, but I do love the Linea look over the GS3. I will say that.
I do too.
I prefer
that's the thing I like the most, which is I like the steam on the GS3. When we were in Italy, we went to the Accademia del Caffè.
Yeah, I saw those on Instagram. Those pictures.
And we had they have a 2-group GS3 there from like the 80s. Okay, it's so sick.
Can I buy this off you?
Yeah, I was like, can I use it? They're like, it's not on. I'm like, oh. It's like I got to use that big machine though, that 5-group head machine. It had like a leva, had it was like AV GS Strata, like the new Strata feature, the new Strata, and then it had like a regular Linea, and then it had like what else did it have? Had the KB90 group head. It was like all the different group heads. It was really cool.
I think the KB90 group head is sick.
I think
the
it's super cool.
straight in portafilters are cool.
I think that's
like the best like in my time in coffee, that's like the coolest change.
Yeah, I think it's super cool too.
I was hoping to see those on like the home machines, but I guess they do have the Strata X
Yeah,
that does have it.
Really cool.
But I'm just like, you know what? As much as I love, really nice
20
pieces
grand.
of, yeah, I was just
It's
like,
a
I'm just not
lot.
gonna 20 grand, bro.
Yeah.
Like I'm a homeowner.
Yeah.
I want to build a porch.
Yeah,
I could build a
that's
porch
a
for
porch.
that.
Yeah,
I could spend a lot more time
Yeah.
on that porch
Yeah.
than I could.
20 grand's almost to get your down payment for a house here. It's almost enough.
It's wild.
It's a lot.
Like, that's just a little too rich for my blood.
Yeah.
So I was like,
One day we'll get there.
I mean, but at the same time too, I just sort of started to feel like in my experience over the last handful of years reviewing equipment and espresso machines in particular, I just didn't feel like La Marzoccos were in most cases better than, in terms of the shots. Like the steam is different. A dual boiler is still going to be peak for steam no matter where you go, La Marzocco or anywhere else. But I feel like in terms of shot quality, I was like, wow, I can get amazing shots out of a $500 machine that rival a mini with just a few, couple $100 worth of mods or less.
I've had good shots on a Simonelli, like a little home one.
Yeah. I mean, I did a blind taste test between my mini and the Gaggia Classic with a 6-bar spring.
You like the Gaggia more?
And I picked the Gaggia.
It's insane. That's really cool.
It's just kind of hard to...
Depends what you want on your counter. For me, it was like, my wife always tells me, if you're going to spend money, spend it well for something that you want, right? In Spanish, it's like, si vas a gasta bien, like spend your money right. When we started, we were like, I could have got a Simonelli, like a 2-group one, same price as the mini. And I could have cranked it way more volume because it was 120 volt too.
Sure.
But every time I had a chance to buy one, my wife would always tell me, hey, it's not a La Marzocco. It's not what you want. And I was like, true. Like, so I shouldn't get it, huh? She's like, no. She's like, every morning you're going to wake up when we have it in our house, because when we're not using it for events at the house, you're going to wake up and you're going to see it and you're going to be like, fuck, I should have got the mini. And you're going to live with that. She's like, and you're going to live with that until you don't have that machine. She's like, so get the mini. And so
that's fair.
And so ever since then, it was one I always wanted since I was like a young barista. I was like, oh, one day I want to buy a mini. I remember somebody, like I had a customer at a shop asked me, he's like, how do you have a mini and you're a barista? I'm like, I have something else going on, but I don't want to I can't talk about it here.
On YouTube, I get comments like that too, where it's just like, there was times where I had like 2 different machines that weren't even mine. Like I'll have the GS3 and I'll have like the San Remo U. And then together that's like $16,000 in like coffee equipment. And people are like, oh, like how can you spend that much money on that? And it's just like, people spend that money on their hobbies all the time. Like, you put some chrome rims on your car, right? There's your espresso machine. Like, it's your priorities. It's what you're interested in. It's what you want to do. You spend your money how you want to spend your money.
Exactly.
Like, it's not hard to grasp. It's like, I'm really into photography. So you buy an inexpensive camera, like a $4,000 camera, there's your Linea Mini. Like, it all just kind of flushes out in the end based on what you're interested in. So
I'm
it's
really
just
into
like,
records and music. So like I have like $2,000 turntables and it's what I want. It's because my friend compared it to me like this. He's like, I asked him like, hey man, I want to buy turntables. Techniques are like one of the best brands, more for like DJing, right?
Sure.
So I do that sometimes. And what's it called? He told me, he's like, when people ask you, what machine should I buy? What do you tell them? I'm like, La Marzocco. He's like, well, there you go, man. You got to get techniques. And I was like, motherfucker. I was like, It's like, all right. Next week, I told my wife, I bought something. She's like, what'd you get? I'm like, some techniques. She's like, I knew it. She's like, it was coming.
Yeah.
So
I'll confidently say, I know nothing about DJ equipment, but I confidently say that you can make great espresso on something other than a La Marzocco, 100%. I think the other factor is the form factor. And I think that in my mind, if I wanted something like right now, I have a Breville in my kitchen, which is not like the sexiest piece of equipment. In the future, would I rather get a Micra or a Mini to sit in there? 100%. Purely because it looks great.
It looks nice.
It looks great. Like it just fits in there.
It's like a KitchenAid mixer.
It looks nice. It's I have a black KitchenAid mixer.
And it looks cool. And it just sits on the counter. Maybe use it every now and then, but it's like, looks 100%.
Nice.
Yeah.
Although if I'm going to actually be real, if I'm going to get like the dream machine for my counter, it'd be a mod bar.
That'd be sick.
I just get
Would you paint it a certain color?
All my faucets are black, so
black
I would
would
just
be
get like
sick.
one to match like
Yeah.
the sink
With
and just
wood
built
too?
in.
Would you put like wood on it too?
If I can get something to match, like I'm very like matchy
Okay.
in my brain, and so like it had to fit, but I would get like the same matte black color as like my faucets
Yeah.
built into the countertop, and
You can make it
that'd be
happen.
it.
Yeah.
You could make it happen eventually.
possible,
Yeah.
yeah. Cut a hole in your counter, no problem.
I mean, if someone would buy this stupid decent off of me, I
Yeah.
mean,
It's cool how that's clear paneling.
yeah. No, I mean it's a solid machine. I just don't love working on it.
Yeah.
I prefer this,
Yeah.
but
I would prefer that too. For
It's
flow,
cool.
like to crank coffees, probably not.
You'd be surprised.
You can like do a couple at a
Well, I mean, like you can steam and pull at the same time, even though it's a single boiler, because the pressure is being created by a spring, not the boiler, or not like a
That's
pump.
cool.
So like you can pull your shot, and that's all happening,
Steam at the same time.
and steam.
Okay.
But the trick, and this is something that I'm working on like a series of videos talking about this machine. I'm like, learning how to pull lever shots.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like, it's trying to find that balance of pressure to temperature
Yeah.
is like, that's been the trickiest part so far with that.
Okay. That's really cool.
So there's a lot of like different little moving
Yeah.
pieces back there. But yeah, it's definitely, it's been a learning
Yeah.
experience, and I've only had it for 2-3 months now.
Okay.
So still trying to master it. It can be frustrating at
Yeah.
times,
I can imagine.
but it's interesting though, because it's kind of like I mentioned earlier how I struggled to get clean bottomless pulls on a mini.
Uh-huh.
I'm having the similar struggles with this, but it's just such a nostalgic feeling to get frustrated with espresso, because I've just been so like everything's been, everything behaves in such a standard way so far.
Yeah.
But then I go back to like kind of a completely different experience, right? Where I'm trying to relearn how to do
it.
puck prep
Yeah.
and get something to work the way I want it to.
Yeah. I always enjoy that stuff too, because sometimes I feel like I'm out of touch with coffee because I'm not doing it as much in my day-to-day life.
Sure.
Just at home, or like I'll go to the shop and I'll maybe help a little bit, but I'm not really doing it as much. So like for me, like when I get to make coffee on the bar, I really, really try to make sure all my shots are perfect. Like,
Yeah.
because I don't get to do it that much. So I'm like, I got to make this count because I don't get to do it. It's like milk boys, like the people that like to do latte art and stuff. It's kind of like that. I feel like that, but with espresso.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I get that. I feel that same way. Just like when I have people come over, like when
Yeah.
you come over, I'm like, I don't really get to make coffee for people that often.
Yeah.
At least people just outside, like my partner gets it every once in a while.
Yeah.
But usually we'll go out for coffee on the weekend. So it's just like, it's such a rare experience to be able to make coffee for someone. So it's such a like, it's just sort of
fun.
weird. Yeah.
I love it. I think even like for like a barista customer standpoint, like I think it's cool how you can like make or break someone's day with one interaction
I think
or
it's
like
cool.
one cup with like, I think it's super cool. Like I met some of my like best friends working. I met you through it. So it's like, I met so many great people through that, like not transactional, almost just like making them coffee, like knowing them by like what they like to drink. And it's almost like when you meet new people, like, oh, I think I know what kind of coffee this person's gonna like, or like things, something like that. Like,
What's my order?
yeah, like cappuccino,
Yeah,
mocha.
that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
You change it up. You change it up.
I do
pretty
change it up a
often,
little bit,
But I know your
yeah.
classics. Like
yeah, cappuccino is
Yeah.
usually like my
you get
go-to.
cappuccinos, you get mochas, you like the Orange Dream.
Yeah, my partner's a big
Yeah.
Orange Dream
Yeah,
fan.
that's a good one.
Yeah.
It's really good cold. It's my favorite.
Yeah, she doesn't like cold coffee.
No,
No, it's weird.
I'm gonna make her one day.
You forced her to have
I
one. the
did
other
that day
and
because
yeah,
she wasn't ready.
yeah, she was like, I mean, she wasn't upset about it. She's fine, but
Yeah.
it's funny because it's just like does not
Yeah.
want cold coffee. Will not order it. Will not order it. She thinks it's like
I like
different.
cold coffee. I like cold brew.
I do too.
I
I
like
think-
flash brews. I like
It's seasonal for me,
Yeah.
more or less. Like if it's hot out, yeah, give me a cold
Mhm.
coffee. I mean, I'll drink hot coffee all the time, but
Mhm.
it's just funny how that whole thing breaks
Yeah.
down. San Diego's just such a cold coffee place, and
Yeah, it is.
she's from Texas.
Texas
Seems like
is-
a cold coffee place
Definitely, yeah.
generally. So, but it wouldn't matter. It'd be like
Yeah.
110 degrees. She'll still order a hot coffee.
Yeah, my mom lives an hour from San Antonio in this place called Kerrville, Texas.
Okay.
She's actually gonna come at the end of February for the premiere we're doing.
Oh yeah.
She but I would go back and forth like from California sometimes this year, and I remember we would eat burritos like that. What your partner eats, like it was kind of like, it's like Tex-Mex, like it's like
yeah, for sure.
it's like a small flour tortilla, bean and cheese, and they call it like guisados, like, or carne guisado, so they make like carne asada with like gravy.
Oh.
So it's really weird. It's
don't like
good, but it's kind of weird. if in theory, right? Like
Yeah.
think of like dark gravy with like grilled meat. Like it's kind of weird.
Huh, I can't even picture that. I think
It's pretty good.
in my visits to Texas, our taco experience was pretty mediocre because it was like we went to actual breakfast places in my visits, and we only really went to the kind of like small, quick spots. They just the tacos were just not good. I don't know how to describe it.
I think I know what you mean.
Yeah,
Like lettuce and like yellow cheese.
No, but we're talking about like breakfast tacos.
Yeah.
Really, like we went to just they're kind of like the same ingredients as like what you would serve, like bean and cheese or chorizo and potato, or like, you know, just a classic like eggs and bacon or something like that. But like there was something about them that just didn't hit, you know? And so I was like, you gotta take me to the good places.
Yeah.
Like, but we would just hit like a random spot, like on the way to the airport or whatever, like, you know, convenience, but not like quality. There is like a I can't remember what it's called, like Home State or something.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's in Carlsbad. It might be a chain, right? Of like a woman from Texas who was like doing breakfast tacos, like the Texas style. I do need to go.
Home State? Is it
Yeah, Home State. I think is what it's called.
Somewhere up there.
Yeah, I don't get out there.
We go to Steady State often. Yeah.
I go to Bound.
Okay.
When I'm up
Bound.
there.
Is it pretty good?
Yeah, my friends Maria and Ryan own that place, and I worked with them way back in the day at my first cafe job, roasting job. And yeah, that right now I don't know who they're serving. They're kind of mixing it up with different roasters as they kind of get on their own feet with roasting.
Yeah.
But
it's a whole beast.
Yeah. But it's kind of like your spot where like it's got good coffee and good food. The I guess good food, good coffee, and like employees that aren't always, you know, quitting or leaving for bad reasons.
They want to be there.
The holy trinity of a coffee shop. Like they have that same thing.
It's the best. Yeah. I remember like places I would go to. You know, I don't know if you ever had this where you would go to a cafe and you'd have that one barista make your coffee all the time.
Yep.
And I felt like when I was a barista, I did that with a lot of people. And I have a friend named Jarrell. He's one of my best friends, and he was a regular of mine at West Bean. And like come 10 years later, he's a regular at Provecho, and he buys coffee, and he has a Gaggi at home. He pimps it out, and he has a niche. Like
right on.
Like he started with caramel latte, now he's doing like espresso. And
well,
super cool.
You gotta start somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Super cool. But it's really cool. Like the friends I made through it, like, and I think that's really magical. Like with you, like your friends that you worked with in the beginning, now they have their own shop, and you get to go see them. And
yeah, it's kind of wild how that plays out, right? I mean,
like the roles reverse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool though, and it's fun to like, you know, chat with them about like what's going on in their little neck of the woods, because I don't get up to North County very often. It's a very different place. From South.
The crowd is very, like the clientele too is also different.
Yeah, very different clientele.
Like from where, like we had someone email us recently, like, "Hey, you want to open an Encinitas?" I'm like, I don't know if that's the
I'd
move.
avoid that personally. Yeah. You can talk to Siri about that. She'll give you all the lowdown on Encinitas.
Oh yeah, because with Lofty, that place would crank. I worked there for a little bit. It was cranked a lot of coffee.
And the food, like I said, the food is now kind of the peak at Lofty, in my opinion. But before we go, I do want to hear about this. You mentioned the premiere.
Yeah,
we were talking about. We talked about earlier. Yeah, like
so
can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so we're gonna be a part of our friends Darla and Nest. They're doing a coffee, like kind of like a coffee documentary called "Coffee is the Universal Language," and we were chosen to be one of the features in the film. So they do different cities, right? So they do like they did New Orleans, they did Los Angeles with Nicely, they did New Orleans with this guy named Trey, who owns his own company too, and so they chose us to be one of the features, and so it's gonna be really cool. And I don't know when it'll release, so it'll be cool to like keep an eye out like when it shows up on YouTube or whatever streaming platform they have. But yeah, it's super cool series about like San Diego coffee culture and about a little more about Provecho, like how we grew and how we changed and stuff like that. It's the story's long and it's hard to explain it in a certain amount of time, but
sure.
Yeah, but it's super cool.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of actually coffee people in San Diego that we have a decently sized coffee scene, but I feel like it's also small enough to where like basically everybody knows everybody.
It's really tight.
Yeah. And I see like, you know, I saw you posting about it. I saw John, and I saw like 5 or 6 other people. I'm just like all posting about it. I'm like, oh, it's like they didn't come to me. It's messed up. No, just
how could we forget?
Yeah, no worries. Yeah. They're like, hey, can we come hang out in your studio?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's cool. It's very cool to see that stuff go outside of San Diego and see San Diego kind of represented on like more of a global or like a countrywide sort of scale.
So I think San Diego coffee scene is really important, right? And it's always, like you said in the beginning, it's always been here, and now it's like slowly changing, right? And it's cool now because a lot of baristas are opening their own concepts, right? So it's almost like a lot of barista-owned shops are showing up. There's a lot of newer, like I almost want to say that like the fourth wave of coffee's coming. Like a lot of like younger kids they aren't really working it, but they started a cart and they're doing it, and it's really cool to see because I'm like, I wonder where they'll be in like 10 years, or like the baristas, like the younger baristas I see at cafes, or like my team, for example, like what do you guys want to be in 10 years, like or 5 years from this experience, right? If you want to stay with me at Provecho, I'm totally happy about it.
Sure.
If you want to do your own thing, you got my back 100. Like I got you 100%. Like I don't know. I think it's really cool to see that because when I first started, I knew I wanted to do something, but I didn't know where I wanted to go with it.
Okay.
I just know I had to work at all the places that I thought were really good to learn as much as I could.
That's really the way to go, though, I think, is to try to get into it and develop an understanding and also see how the business is ran. Outside of like the fun stuff, a lot of people look at coffee and owning a coffee shop in such a romanticized way. They're like, oh, it's going to be like Gilmore Girls or some shit.
No, it's
not.
Sometimes it is.
That's part of it, for sure. But also a lot of it's like dealing with, issues between employees and signing paychecks and dealing with the bank account and ordering oat milk. And it's just like, there's a lot of not fun stuff involved.
Yeah.
And when I first started working in a cafe, or before I did, I was like, owning a cafe, like that seems like a cool job. Like I want to do that like in the future. And then after 6 months working in a cafe, I'm like, never mind.
Like, I'm good.
I'm all right with that.
Still don't want to do it?
Still don't want to do it. Yeah. I mean, I like to serve coffee and like, I get to do it. I guess I've done it last year and I'll do it this year. At SCA, I'll be at Third Wave Water's booth. Okay.
We'll go see you.
Serving coffee. Maybe I'll do Provecho this year. Maybe I'll pull
send you
some shots. Yeah. Cause I did.
Let me know. We'll send you. We can ship it to you. Yeah. I'm also going to be in Texas too.
Oh, right on.
We're going to go too.
Right on. Yeah. So like I did, I wanted to like represent San Diego. So I did Necessity last year. Nice. We also going to do Provecho this year.
We can get something really crazy for you too.
Hey, whatever you want to offer, man. Yeah. We did a crazy-ish one. I think it was a natural Costa Rica.
Okay.
But I mean, it's open to whatever you want to do.
I think by April, I should have some good stuff coming.
Right on.
Yeah.
But yeah, just like, it's fun to do, but it's just like, an hour on the bar, it's like, all right, we're good.
Yeah.
We're good. We're all set for the next year.
Sometimes I have like the shifts at Provecho are heavy because it's pretty high volume. So it's like 8 hours you're just cranking, and it's,
time goes pretty fast.
Pretty fast. I recall, though. Yeah, it goes by quick, and I think I don't know what like drove me to want to do it so bad. Like I told you at the beginning, I didn't really want to do a cafe. It kind of just happened, and if I were to do it again, I think I would want to do another cafe. Just don't know when. Like a lot of people tell me, like, "Oh, you ready to do it, bro? Just do it." I'm like, it's a lot. Like it's a lot of people that want to open it. They, like you said, they romanticize it and think it's like this super glamorous activity. It's like roasting. A lot of people glamorize roasting.
Oh yeah,
but it's heavy. You can throw your back out. You're lifting heavy sacks. You're waking up really early. Your batch might not come out the right way because something's wrong with the green or the roaster's not heated. There's a whole thing.
There's a lot of factors.
A lot of factors. And like same thing with running a cafe. There's so many factors. Somebody can call out sick and go on vacation and you got to work a 12-hour day, right? So it's like
3 days in a row.
3 days in a row. I do that often. Like I work like 12-hour days. Like I'm up at 6. I get home at 6. Like, so it's like my whole day, but it's like not just bar time. It's like bar time, delivering coffee, maybe helping a client with something, sending emails.
Yeah, when you have wholesale, it's also adds another.
It's a beast. Yeah, the roastery is a whole beast of a business, and we started with wholesale, so I got really lucky, and I had a friend in Phoenix that managed this place called Valentine. He was the bar manager.
Okay.
And he was like, "Hey, dude, I'm working at this place that does like Sonoran style Mexican breakfast or inspired food, so they want Mexican coffee. I thought of you," and it's kind of how I got in. And I remember the guy called me once. He's like, "Why is your coffee so expensive?" And I was like, man, like I'm getting it myself and I'm importing it across the border. Like he's like, "That's so cool. Sign me up. Send me more." I was like, "Perfect."
That's awesome.
It's super cool. The first day that guy ordered, he's like, "Send me this and this, this and this." I'm like, "Cool." We were roasting on the little two like we did 3 pounds at a time at that time, and he ordered like 80 pounds. I had to call him like at 8 p.m. like, "Hey man, I don't have enough coffee for you." He's like, "Just send me what you got." And it's like, "Okay." So
yeah, that type of shit happens though. Early on,
I didn't know how to manage inventory, and now I'm like now I'm projecting to buy like for the year. So it's like, it's pretty crazy.
You can get on that quick. Things are going to change in an interesting
Really,
way here.
Yeah. It's
I
going to
feel
go
like-
up a lot.
Yeah, I feel like when coffee prices are they're already at like record highs, I think, but
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting to see when tariffs start
A lot of
coming into play.
A lot of coffees that cost like $3.50 or like $4.50 now. $5.
Yeah, it's what I mean. I haven't roasted in a while, but I remember buying green, and it was just like starts to get pretty heavy in terms of the price point. And then if you're buying it, like when it was just me roasting, it was like, okay, I just make it work. But when you have someone who's checking your numbers, you have someone who has to approve these things before, like trying to explain to somebody who knows nothing about coffee or nothing about, origins and processing and stuff like that, why this Brazilian coffee is, $2 a pound and this Ethiopian is like $6.50 is very difficult. And they're just like, could just get 2 bags of the Brazilian. Why are you getting this Ethiopian too? So it's just like, that was my biggest issue.
That's stressful.
When I was working for someone as a roaster,
Yeah.
and they got bought out by a company. Both of them, I think the company is no longer in existence. I don't know if the person or the company
Which
that bought it
company
out.
was it?
Leap is who I worked
I
for.
remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, then they sold like controlling shares to some like restaurant group who came in. Like this was December of 2019.
Okay.
They came in and were like, at that time I was salary. So they didn't care when I came in, how long I was there, as long as the roasting got done, bagging, I did like all the stuff in the back, production basically. And
It's heavy too, especially if you had wholesale.
we did a little bit, but not a lot. So, I was roasting still like, still 30 hours a week roughly. But yeah, they came in, they're like, oh, you're no longer on salary. You need to clock in like everybody else. You need to be in here at this time. And like, I come in at like 5 a.m. because I'm trying to avoid traffic. I'm like driving 40 minutes one way. Like I'm trying to get in before and get out before.
Yeah.
And they just didn't want to hear it. They wanted to like go all the cheaper coffees.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I'm out.
That's tough
like-
when that happens. Like a lot of companies do that. It's like when someone uses Strauss and they go to Rockview, or they use Oatly and then they go to Kirkland. I'm really like fascinated about those kind of things too. And like, why do companies have to cut costs? I always wonder if it's like a big owner's draw or if it's like someone's not managing their labor. I feel like there's so many things that like involve.
Yeah, I think
Like,
there's probably like a mixture of those things.
It's a
going on
mix,
there,
yeah,
for
like
sure.
maybe rent's really high. Like, I don't know. I think the moment you change something like that, I feel like one person will know. Like the person that gets a whole milk latte every day, if you change the milk, they'll know.
For sure.
I don't know. I think I can talk to you about Strauss milk for a long time. I love that milk, but
Yeah. No, I mean, milk is no longer just milk for me, but yeah, it's definitely like there's just so many factors. There's so many factors involved, but anyway, we've been doing this for about an hour and a half, man.
Yeah.
So
I
I want
it's
to
been a
try
pleasure, man. No,
yeah,
you're
of
good.
course. Of
Yeah.
course. Do you want
Yeah.
to shout out, like, where can people find you?
Oh
Find your
yeah,
coffee?
yeah. You can find us in Logan Heights. It's 1955 Julian Avenue, San Diego, California 92113. I remember that like back of my hand. Like, you can find us there. We're open every day, 8 to 3, inside of Bread and Salt. It's an art gallery space, so you can get some coffee, check out some art. On the weekends we do burritos, so you can get Saturday and Sunday you can get some like TJ style burritos. We do events every now and then, so you can find music. You can have like a different vendor. We'll be selling food or pastries one day. We get conchas and like modern Mexican like inspired pastries from our friends Hijas de Maíz. They're really great. Yeah, shout out to everybody. Shout out to Asa for having me here.
Man.
And
they can find you at
being
Provecho, at Provecho on Instagram.
Oh yeah, you can find us on Instagram at Provecho Coffee. You can order coffee online at www.provechocoffee.com. Yeah, you can shout out to my wife Karim for being the biggest supporter of me and pushing me to do everything that we do. And my team, John, Jorge, Ashley, Saul, Anya, all of you guys are crushing it. Thank you.
Right on, man.
But yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for having me, man. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah,
I appreciate
of
it.
course. Yeah, thank you.
Right,
yeah,
man.
thank you.
Well, with that, we're going to end this episode number 2 of the Over Extracted podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you want early access to the podcast, become a channel member on YouTube, and you'll get those about a week prior to their actual public release. Otherwise, catch us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all those places to listen to the audio versions. But with that, I will bid you farewell into the next one.